All right, One Piece chapter 1129. The story continues. I'm pretty sure we're in Elbaf. I'm pretty sure we're in Elbaf now. Now, this chapter was not perfect, but it's fun. There's nothing wrong with fun. However, there's a scale issue. Strength, just straight up narrative, and the importance of such and how it's going to flip from arc to arc. Even though you can enjoy something, you can also understand how the story is supposed to make you feel and how you actually feel. That was a word salad and it didn't really amount to anything, so I'm sorry. But I'll explain everything about how I feel about this chapter because you can understand necessity, but then there's also just, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if I buy it, but hey, we're here. Let's get to it. Cover story, Tama, ninja lesson, Shinobu. She gained that all back quickly, didn't she? I didn't expect it all to come back, you know? Shinobu looking healthy. You have Yamato, what happened to the kidnapped people? I guess it's going to come back at some point, but now it's just time with the ninja lesson. It's cute, it's fine. Not much progression that you really care about, but it is what it is. That's the cover story. That's it. Let's move on. The Sun God. Initially, the first thing I noticed is just the speech patterns and how it's not meant to be sinister. So that's something I felt from this character was like, okay, this is not going to be a sinister interaction. This character just seems to have a fetish or just a way of how they go about doing things where they were collecting people as dolls, which we kind of expected with some giants having humans. Big Mom had things. It's them. I don't want to say classism, sizeism. It's just him feeling like he's better than people or anything smaller than him, right? But it's deeper than that considering who this person is. At first I said like this could be a princess. Shout out to Tekken because Tekken 1000% called it before the fact. So shout out to that. It's crazy because it's just so obscure and random. But this guy, I understand why he feels why he feels the way he feels. It makes sense. It makes sense. And I like the angle, but as far as the scale of hype, not that high for me. It's fun, right? And I think sometimes, even in the community, some people get caught up in hype, where if it's not hype, it's not good. That's not how it works. It's a good chapter. Was it hype? To varying degrees. But we got to remember, we just came off of fighting Gorosei. We just came off of all these different things. Joy Boy's hockey. It was all the way up here. Now, Oda, in this chapter, you can almost see that he's manufacturing, not necessarily tension, but making it interesting because this is a Yonko crew. And when I think about it, not many people, not many crews, not many adversaries are going up against the Straw Hats and walking out alive if they so chose. So Oda's drumming it up and making it like, well, this is a worthy adversary. Then Nami takes him out, right? And I'm just saying, but it's fun. And whilst you're reading it, you're not taking it too seriously. Like, I really feel like how you should read One Piece. It's fun, but try not to compare it to what we just got off of because that was it. This is, all right, new arc, new island. We're just getting into it, right? That's it, that's all. Now, Road, who this sun god is, at first, I was like, whomever is mimicking the sun god is going to be blasphemous. It's not going to be one of the elder giants, one of the people we feel like are at the top of the Elbafers, because that's kind of, it's blasphemous. This is the sun god, right? But what you realize about Road is that there is something internal that he's struggling with, and it has to do with smaller people. That's why he has living dolls that he can rule over and have in this carefully crafted world, right? RPG was one of the titles of a recent chapter. For Road, he's used actual people to create this living world, this miniature living world that operates on its own, ideally, of course, with interference from the gods. And for him, it is a way to somewhat show his power, his dominance over humans and any smaller species because of his, I don't know if it's hate, but it is a pride that he has within himself as a giant that feels like he should rule over smaller people. Now, did this necessarily come from Hajrudin? Because Road is a member of the New Giant Pirates. And for him, he did not acknowledge the Straw Hats, even though Hajrudin basically bowed to Luffy. So in his mind, you're asking me to acknowledge these people. I don't recognize them. You do. So now they've fallen into this miniature world, right? Prove to me that you are what Hajrudin says you are. To me, you're nothing because you're small. Why would I let you, someone smaller than me, rule over me? I'm big. I'm a giant, right? And it's a pride within oneself, but it's also something that's probably built into all the giants. Where it's like, we're big. We we should be stronger, we should be more powerful. And even Oda, how he constructed this chapter is them running from this giant, right? They're like, oh my God, it's so big, it's like a demon. Yeah, but we know giants. We've seen giants in action. And so for me, it's hard to say, okay, the Straw Hats running away from a road. I know what Luffy did to Hajruden. I'm not worried about road, but I have to remove that from my mind, understand, okay, let's stay within what's going on. Oda created this small miniature world. It's living dolls. The Straw Hats are trying to get away. It's a problem within Road, and the Straw Hats, like Luffy always does, is going to prove him wrong and look at his ideals, even some of his selfishness, and show like, damn, Luffy really is him. It's almost dispelling this notion that he has against not only the Straw Hats, but small people, which that may completely eradicate how he feels about small people in general, because Luffy, and not even just Luffy, Nami, the Straw Hats in general, they are special. And so I like the plot that's going on, but also the subplots within Road's personality that Oda is trying to just destroy using Luffy. But in the midst of it, using Luffy to acknowledge, hey, that's really cool. It's very carefully crafted. He's a meticulous guy. Look at this world that he created. And Oda's not specifically saying that, but the fact that he used Luffy to acknowledge it is something that gave me pause to say, okay, wait, what's going on here? It's something deeper, right? It's something deeper. And for some of Oda's characters, how he crafts them, it's like they're flaws built in, and the Straw Hats, they let them realize their flaws and they completely eradicate them. And now they're part of our side. They're on our team. And so this is one of those instances where it's just like, oh, that's cool. I like what Oda did there. It's not super sinister. It's not that crazy, but it's fun, right? And you can have fun with the chapter and even acknowledging within this chapter, oh, that's cool. This is a One Piece chapter. Without losing your absolute minds. In every chapter, I don't have to lose my mind. It's One Piece. I'm here for One Piece. It is what it is. And some people may say, well, oh, bro, it's just mid. Sometimes you just got called mid. Yeah, and I feel like there are ways to say things, right? And I feel like even for a chapter that's considered mid, right, it can be enjoyable to varying degrees. For me, this chapter was cool. But if you've been reading One Piece for a long time, you almost find a way to enjoy something about the chapter just because of how much you're invested in the story. And that's kind of how I feel about this chapter. And of course, for me, you guys know I read the chapters live. So even with the insight from the chat, it adds to it for me. And it was fun. It was fun. Road being the person, I mean, no one thought it was Road. Tekken did. Again, shout out to Tekken. Damn, that's fun. Now the issues with the chapter, not really an issue, but something that I noticed when I was rereading it. In the moment when I was reading it, it's fun. Upon the reread, I'm like, I don't feel that. I don't feel scared of this character. But then I'm like, with the character and the stuttering, the changing of words, it wasn't meant to feel real. It's just meant to feel fun, something they have to overcome, just an obstacle, a simple obstacle, but it's not sinister. I feel like some people are looking at this chapter like, I mean, I don't feel like they should be running from this giant. They can pack him up. And I said this last week, no matter what, Oda is going to drum up the giants and make it feel a lot more, like it has a lot more oomph than it really does, because you can't just have the giants get eradicated by the Straw Hats as soon as you pull up. Now, Road on the totem pole isn't that high, but it's still like we're showing just what giants bring. And for me, myself, I'm starting to acknowledge what the giants are, because in a vacuum, look at the giants. Okay, 1v1 versus most of these characters that I consider top tier or close to top tier, they get eradicated, right? And so in the midst of, I guess, things making sense, right? In my mind, what do the giants bring to the table? But easily destruction, right? They're large. They can cause a wide area of damage with attacks. And for the average person, giants are going to be overwhelming and intimidating. So how can I look at this character from the perspective of somewhat an average person? Like for Usopp. Usopp is terrified, even though he loves the giants, because genuinely, this is an obstacle that will be difficult for Usopp to overcome. I think sometimes we look at the Straw Hats and every obstacle we come across, we're like, well, that thing can't stop Luffy. Why are you scared of it? What we saw in this chapter, the giant had different ways to incapacitate them. They're about to wake up. Nah, stay asleep for a little while longer. Now, the thing that's kind of is the mist. See, I'm going to chalk it up to they just got drunk and the giants forgot about the mist belt and everybody fell asleep and then they got kidnapped. Just going to throw that out there. That's what happened. Because, I mean, that's something that you would inform them about, right? I was just like, huh? So, but not a big deal. Not really a big deal. But again, for Road, he was somewhat testing the Straw Hats. Not that he wants to acknowledge them, but he feels like they're not worthy. right? And how things played out is exactly how Road would like for things to play out. That's why he had this world, this this miniature society, living society. And so for him being the god of it, these ants fighting back plays into his mind, the story in his mind of him being the god that has to quell the non-believers. And so it's him, even though it's not going in his favor initially, he's like, oh man, I underestimated them. It's almost like he's having like one of those moments where you're by yourself and you have like these RPG moments in your head and you're playing it out. He's doing it in real life using living dolls, which is kind of messed up because they're trapped, but it goes back to him and his acknowledgement of like, or Hajruden's acknowledgement could be deeper. So again, I like the plots. I like the subplots within it. It's cool. It's cool. And I feel like it's okay to say a chapter is just cool. This chapter, just cool. There are other things going on with Luffy that's just like, I'm not sure if he's grown or is Oda just trying stuff. The hybrid stuff. What is that about? Luffy, what are you? I love it. But the potential of that is insanity because we know how we feel about the drawbacks. We don't like them. So that's really cool. I mean, for the most part, the strides in this chapter were the strides, right? Zoro and Sanji having their moments, Nami having her moment. Usopp, again, it seems like Oda has a intentional vibe to not necessarily regress Usopp, but to paint Usopp in a light that he's more useless than normal. Last chapter, Luffy saying, well, you could have taken that, right? It's like Oda's going out of his way to, I don't want to say shit on Usopp, but like paint Usopp as regular so that he can build him up, prop him up by the end of this arc. That's how it feels. Maybe that's my bias because I expect Usopp to do great things, but that's how it feels right now. When Nami outshines him in the castle, outshines him here again, it just feels like a theme that's going to happen for Usopp. And, you know, it's something that if you're acknowledged early, it's okay. But if it's something that you expect Usopp to do right away, you're going to be frustrated. Like, Usopp, come on. It's Elbaf. Get going. It's like, give it time. Either way, this entire plot point seemed to progress very quickly with Road. The Straw Hats, they got captured. They figured out what it was. They met up with each other. Now they found the Sun God, ran away from the Sun God, defeated the Sun God, and now they're free in 2 chapters. So I'm not sure if the quickened pace is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm going to lean towards good because I didn't mind when even in Egghead, we skipped all the other stuff after we were fighting the Seraphim and we came back. It was like, oh, this Robin got hurt and people were like, yo, why Oda didn't show us? I'm just like, do we really need to see the Straw Hats fighting the Seraphim? Do we really need, come on, we don't need that. So the pace is quickened for sure because the Straw Hats, bro, they separated. And within the next chapter, they were back together. The OGs are back together. Really? I'm like, that was fast. So overall, good chapter. One Piece. It's One Piece. It gave us One Piece. So yeah, give me your thoughts. How do you feel about it? We're out of this room, this prison, and now it seems it's time to explore. Maybe we go to the next group or we find somebody else that's in distress, but we're out of here. Typical chapter, no break next week. Something to look forward to. Let's get to it. Like the video, subscribe. Catch you guys in the next one.